Really? Oh, okay, that's right. Hello and welcome to all of you in our studio audience and the viewers who are watching us live streaming tonight. I'm Amy Osher, host of Behind the Headlines. I'll be your moderator this evening. On behalf of the Naples Daily News and NBC2, I'd like to welcome you to the Bonita Springs Candidates Forum. We're live in the Naples Daily Newsroom studio. Our panelists tonight are Alan Bartlett, editorial editor with the Naples Daily News, Brent Batten, columnist with the Naples Daily News, and Chad Oliver, anchor with NBC2. To my left are this evening's candidates, Councilman Stephen McIntosh, Councilman Peter Simmons, and Challenger Rick Steinmeier. Okay. Before we get underway, I'm going to read our rules of conduct and rules of engagement. The rules of conduct: no signs, t-shirts, or handout material or any supporting any candidate or cause. Cell phones must be turned to silent. No pictures or videos may be taken during this forum. No speaking from the audience. No show of support for or against any participant, candidate, panelist, or moderator, which includes clapping, cheering, whistling, or booing. Applause is appropriate upon conclusion of this program. And then the rules of engagement, which we sent to each candidate prior. Candidates will be offered a 2-minute opening and closing statement. Panelists will offer each candidate the opportunity to answer each question. Response times will be limited to 1 minute. A timekeeper will notify candidates when their time is up. Repeated disregard for time limit will result in a 30-second penalty during candidates' closing statement. Rebuttals are at the discretion of the moderator. That's me. Questions submitted from the public will be screened in advance by the Naples Daily News and delivered by our panelists. No profanity will be tolerated. Before we get underway, we're going to give you a breakdown of how this forum is going to play out. We'll start with the candidates' opening statements, then move to the panelists' questions, followed by questions from the community, which were submitted in advance by our email, social media, and here tonight from our audience. Then the panelists will have a final round. Finally, each candidate will get a chance to make their closing statement. And now let's begin with Mr. McIntosh's opening. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Steve McIntosh, thank you to the Naples Daily News for having us here tonight. This is a wonderful opportunity for our citizens as well as us. I'm Steve McIntosh, 6 years on Bonita Springs City Council, 4 of those as Deputy Mayor. I bring experience with a corporate Fortune 500 company. I'm Steve McIntosh. I am Bonita Springs City Council 6 years, 4 years as Deputy Mayor. Prior to coming to City Council, I've lived here 20 years with my family and my business. My business is strategic planning, team building, and assessment of people. Those are 3 skills that are critical for a mayor to lead a city and a council. I know that for a fact because I've been endorsed and supported by all 3 of the previous Bonita Springs mayors. I've spent 20 years in community service throughout this community. If you tried to alphabetize them and go from the Art League of Bonita Springs Utilities to the Chamber of Commerce through Wonder Gardens, YMCA, and Zonta. I was raised in a Quaker church where I learned that giving back is the most important thing in life, and that's what my wife Connie and I have been able to do. You don't do it for the honor, but I've been Bonita Springs Citizen of the Year, Lee County Schools Partner of the Year, Chamber Director of the Year, and Rotarian of the Year. This gives me contacts throughout the entire city for widespread kinds of issues, bringing the right people together to solve those problems. And finally, commitment. I'm committed to this city. I'm committed to the charter that we have to run our city. I will live by that charter, and I am your neighbor. I will be here in the future. Thank you very much.
Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, NBC2, and thank you, Naples Daily News, and thank you, everybody that's here this evening and at home watching. I'm Peter Simmons. I've been on the Bonita Springs City Council for the past 4 years, and I'm pretty proud of my record. It seems like much of the country is discovering what we've known in Bonita Springs now for a long time. It's a beautiful place to live, work, go to school, and retire. With that comes pressure, a lot of pressure. Pressure from developers, pressures on schools, pressures on roads, pressures on our economy, our beaches, and our environmentally protected areas. Here's my commitment to you, the voters. I'm not afraid to say no. I don't believe for 1 minute that we can't enjoy our current quality of life and let our community continue to grow and bring new businesses to Bonita Springs. It's called balance. Unfortunately, a lot of people today look at win versus lose and us versus them. When that happens, everybody loses and nothing gets accomplished. I'll look for balance. I'll protect to make Bonita Springs the special place that it is and let it continue to grow. I'm proud to have received the endorsements of Councilman John Joyce, Councilman Pat McCourt, Councilman Alex Grant, Councilwoman Martha Simons, Councilman Bill Longcart, Councilman Mike Gibson, and Councilman-elect Fred Forbes and Peter O'Flynn. I believe our 34 years of combined experience will serve Bonita Springs well. I'm very happy to announce the endorsement of Lee County Sheriff Mike Scott as of yesterday, and very proud to announce the endorsement of the Southwest Spotlight. It's now named the Bonita Springs Spotlight, our community newspaper in Bonita Springs. They wrote a wonderful article today endorsing my candidacy, but the endorsement that I want most is from you, the people of Bonita Springs. I very much appreciate your consideration and look forward to a good evening tonight in discussing the issues.
Thank you. Mr. Steinmeier?
Yeah, I'm Rick Steinmeier. If you can hear me, say yes, Rick. Yes, Rick. Okay. I'm the outsider in this group. I'm not on the government payroll. I have never been on the government payroll. I'm a Penn State graduate in food service and housing administration. I can feed you and I can house you. I've attended more council meetings than anybody except Ben Nelson. The improvements that need to be done in the city of Bonita Springs in the area of maintenance. The water tower, the antique water tower down at by the Lyles Hotel, it's been put up there for 15 years and nobody touched it. Now it's all rotted. Tear it down and build a replica. The skate park the skate park that we built, never looked underneath it, and here it's all rotted underneath. They wanted to tear it down. They said, well, no, for $60,000 we can repair it, but nobody looked at it for 10 years and needs repaired. The arrows turning into City Hall need to be painted. They haven't been painted. The crosswalk in front of City Hall hasn't been painted in years. Somebody's responsible for doing this work. Nobody sees anything. There's potholes on Bonita Beach Road. I got a call and get somebody from the city to call Lee County to get these things fixed. Nobody else does it. I'm the only. I call the City Hall once a week or twice a week just to get things done. Did you know Bonita Springs was a bank? We lent a not-for-profit $3.5 million. I don't know if we'll ever get it paid back. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to turn it over to questions from our panelists, beginning with Alan.
Yeah, first I wanted to thank you all for getting up here through the weather tonight. Thank you all for your dedication. We appreciate that very much. A few moments ago, we shut the fans off on the air conditioner, so hopefully that'll help everybody hear a little bit better. But I might suggest if anybody's having a hard time hearing, maybe just kind of raise your hand as a signal to us. Okay, thank you. We're going to go ahead and start with the first question, and it will be, first we'll ask Steve McIntosh to tackle this question first, and then we'll go down to the others on the panel. What is the biggest thing the current council did that you would have done differently if given the chance?
You should be very proud of the city of Bonita Springs. We have a balanced budget. We have nice reserves. We have never gone into deficit spending. Even Alexander Hamilton, the first treasurer of the United States, said, every government needs some debt in order to be able to grow and prosper. The things that I think we've done very, very well, we've created green space. Every decision I make is based first on what happens to the environment. After we get through those pieces of the downtown is going to be wonderful. You'll be very proud. Right now it's very difficult to get through and our businesses are suffering, so please stop downtown as often as you can. But in 10 years, when you're able to walk downtown, bike downtown, on a walkable, bikeable downtown, you'll be able to say, this is a place I'm proud to live. I think the thing that we missed is an opportunity to understand how we can get through the intersection of Bonita Springs and US 41. We're going to go through a visioning study where we'll take a look at that again. And I think most importantly, we need to start thinking about how we create zoning that really matches what we need to do in the city long term. Thank you.
Peter?
Well, recently, as Steve touched base, we're going a massive redevelopment in downtown Old 41, and that original proposal was for $15 million. And we have a partnership there with Lee County, and I voted in favor of that proposal. But then they came back closer to $23, $24 million, and I voted against it. So while I am 100% redeveloping and revitalizing downtown Bonita Springs, we need to be fiscally conservative and better stewards of our money. That is a lot of money on our annual budget. And while I'm very proud of what's going on there, I think we could have kept a closer eye on the economics of it and accomplished many of the same things. So I definitely would have done that differently.
Thank you.
Rick?
Oh, thank you, Peter. I just happened to have the article from the Naples Daily News here. City Council votes 6-1 to adopt a $35 million spending plan. And I'm proud to say that the guy next to me, Peter, was the one that turned it down. Now the guy next to him, Stephen McIntosh, said he is unconcerned with the spending deficit. The most important thing that's going on right now is our relationship with Estero, this village of Estero. The city voluntarily annexed a piece of property north of Coconut Road. In this article from Spotlight, he said he never approved, this is Mr. McIntosh, never approved a high-rise. The city, and this is from the annexation memorandum.
Hit your minute. We'll come back to some other issues later. Yeah.
Oh, it's not two, okay.
Question for the candidates. Do you have a preferred site for a new high school in Bonita Springs, and if so, where? How will you work the school district to make sure that that site becomes a reality? And what assurance can you give the nearby residents that the quality of life won't be impacted? I'll start with you, Mr. Simmons.
Right. No, it's a great question, and obviously the residents of Bonita Springs, we deserve a high school. It's long overdue, and I'm proud to say we are going to have a high school. Now, location, 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 right? That matters. There were some originally in the conversation that wanted to put it as far east as it could be in Bonita Springs. Not because there's any students out there, but because it's a means to an end to develop in the wetlands and the environmentally sensitive end of East Bonita Springs. Absolutely, I'm opposed to that. There's 3 locations, at least 3 that I know of currently. The corner of Bonita Beach Road and Bonita Grand on the north side. There is a location off of Terry Street, north of the YMCA, and there is another location being discussed on Imperial, just north of the Hawthorne community. I think any one of those 3 locations deserve serious contemplation and ultimate approval. There's certain neighbors that aren't going to be happy with that answer, but as long as the height, and it could be, and in a different area, as long as it's in an environmentally prudent area, I'm all for it. We're overdue for a high school. Thank you.
Mr. Steinmeier, high school.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the Imperial location near Hawthorne, which is a fairly new development. And somewhere in the newspaper I read where there's 35 sexual predators in the area. That's the bad news, but the good news is that's the least anywhere in Lee County. Wow. I think from looking at the map, it looks like a nice location. I think the city manager, Carl Swing, mentioned it a long time ago that he thought that would be a good spot for it. And I believe it would be also. Thank you.
Mr. McIntosh.
Thank you. I have a long-term reputation and work with the public school system, and I'm publicly educated from kindergarten to PhD. I understand how important public education is. I have a relationship with the school superintendent, and I've had a private conversation with him about his responsibility to our city. Now there are 2 points. First, it's got to be a location safe for our children. Secondly, it's got to be a location that fits the neighborhood as it is today. The areas where we're looking have different site opportunities, and I've spoken with the people who will create and design the architecture around this. They're convinced that they can create a site and a facility that meets the standards of the neighborhood without disrupting the social and economic impact of that neighborhood. It does not fall under the purview of the city, but it's people like you in the city who come out and make their voices known that it'll end up in the right place, safe for our children, and the right location for the neighborhood.
Chad?
One issue that we've spent a lot of time in the news recently covering is the Raptor Bay property, and I'm curious to hear from the candidates about the future of that piece of land. Recently, Mayor Ben Nelson was the only one to vote in favor of changing the zoning for that piece of land to build the 4 condo towers. We'll start with Mr. Steinmeier. Mr. Steinmeier, what is your vision for that Raptor Bay Golf Club property?
Well, I think we've got our in a ringer. This is the annexation agreement. The city supports and will approve application to provide for the development plan that will allow a portion of the existing approved units within the DRI, Development Regional Impact, which is Pelican Landing, to cluster and construct in up to 4 multifamily buildings with a permitted height of 20 habitable floors over 2 floors of parking. Now, this was signed unanimously by the city council. And now they're saying, oh, we don't want any, forget it. I don't want any high rises. Estero is all kinds of upset because they own part of that road. Lee County owns part of Coconut Road. It's overused. And
You're in favor of
this
keeping
whole
the zoning as
annexation
is.
was brought on by Mr. McIntosh. Thank you.
Mr. McIntosh?
I think when the negotiators was signed and agreed, we all thought it was probably going to be multi-use, mixed-use development. And when it came forward that they were going to try to build high-rises there, we all voted against it. Well, the mayor and we do have a risk management responsibility as council members, and I think the mayor was trying. I'm not speaking for him. I think he was trying to say there is a risk by turning down the high-rises, and that's probably part of the contract issue. So we are not going to build the high-rises. We're not going to agree to it, and we have not agreed to it. There's some concern that during the first reading that some of us voted to allow a second reading. If you don't allow a second reading, if you vote it down, the developer has the opportunity to start building and go right through it. They have a legal right to be able to make their cases known, as does the public to have that second reading. So the council voted down the high-rises. I don't see them being built, but you have to understand that there are risks involved. They have options to take from this point on.
Councilman Simmons? So I think, getting back to your question, Chad, you said, what's your vision for that area? I mean, I think most of us are familiar with that area. It's beautiful. You have the Coconut Hyatt. You have some beautiful homes there. And you have the Weeks Fish Camp, which we've been in discussions of making that a public marina. Right. So when you think about a vision, that is my vision, is to open up that marina so that the public has access to the water and we don't overburden that area with 4 more towers or whatever number we ultimately get at. That overburdens the area. That is not my vision. Direct answer to your question for that area. And I made the motion to deny those towers. Steve seconded, and we voted it down. So when you say a vision, it's a beautiful area already. Let's get the public some access to the water and keep it a healthy, beautiful community and not overburden the people there or the road.
Thank you all.
Okay, round 2 of the questions from our panelists. Brent?
I'll go. Steve, you had mentioned in your opening remarks, but I'd like to hear it from all of you. Looking ahead 4 years, describe the old 41 downtown district. What will it look like? Who will live there? Who will visit there? What will traffic be like? What needs to be done by the city and the mayor to make this vision a reality? And if there's more than what's currently being done, what is that? Steve?
You want to start?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. You're going to be very proud to be downtown. It'll be a walkable, bikeable community, and the thing that I think you'll be most impressed with, we'll have affordable housing for young professionals. Right now, we have teachers and nurses graduating from FGCU who can't afford to live in Bonita Springs where they work. We're working with developers for incentives on increasing slightly the density of the area where they're building in order for them to build affordable housing. It doesn't mean only students and staff downtown, but one of the things I've worked with as being chairman of the foundation board at Florida Gulf Coast University is the relationship I have with President Bradshaw. He's been to the Wonder Gardens 3 times, and he's given us a promise that FGCU will have classes and laboratories in the Wonder Gardens. We'll have an FGCU flag, we'll have students, parents, staff, a whole new face for downtown. It's going to be an eco-tourist destination for Florida. We have 3 riverways running through it. We have green space, we have parks. The new library will be down there. This will be a place where people talk about coming and want to live.
Mr. Simmons?
No, absolutely. I concur. You know, we talk about Fifth Avenue on Naples, which is very special in this community here in Naples. We look at downtown Fort Myers, which is also wonderful and has come a long way. We really, you know, we have all the basics there already. We have the bones, and we're going to add to that. We have a beautiful park. We have the Everglades Wonder Garden. The library is long overdue, but that will be coming downtown. It'll be an area, coffee shops are going to be coming, restaurants, areas that people can walk to and bike to and stop and shop and spend some money, get a nice meal, and live. We've approved some housing development down there for young professionals, people to come into the area. Some seniors could live there as well, and it's going to we can build it, but if there's nobody that's going to be there, if people are just going to drive through it, that's not really what I'm envisioning. I'm sure people can drive through, but we want them to stop. But we want some people that live there that can enjoy it fully, as well as the community.
Thank you. Mr. Steinmeier?
Well, as a lifelong resident, or having family in Bonita for 67 years and paying taxes in Lee County for 67 years, my aunt and uncle purchased a restaurant, which is now called Maria's. In those days, it was the Anchor Barbecue in 1948. Bumper to bumper traffic during season. What's different now? Nothing's different. Bumper to bumper forever and ever during season. I'm sorry, but it's not going to change. Unless this global warming really takes off and they don't come down. Fat chance of that. So far, we've run off all the working poor, shall we call them that? We had the bamboo court. We had 150 mobile home resident park in there, and the Manor Court. We bought that up and run off all the local people. Now we want them to come back in. Thank you.
Chad.
Well, elections are about choices, and it's why everyone's here tonight. It's why they're watching online. Gentlemen, what is one area where your opinion and vision for the city of Bonita Springs clearly differs from the other 2 candidates in this race? We'll start with Councilman McIntosh.
I think we have a pretty unified vision downtown, to tell you the truth. We've talked about it on council, in public. We're going to be different than Naples. We're not going to look like Naples. We're going to look like old Florida, downtown Bonita. And that's where we tried to get for 40 years. And regardless of how it looks now, it's going to be a place where people come because they want to be there. It's going to have mixed-use buildings. We have developers already who are building mixed-use buildings to residential and retail. So the look is going to be green space, environment, ecotourism. We'll have the Wonder Gardens as a bookend on the north. That's going to be a botanical garden sitting right on the Imperial River. We'll have classes there from FGCU. We'll have students. Right next door there'll be lofts and restaurants. South bookend will be the Shangri-La Hotel and Spa that's being renovated. And in between, you're going to have a walkable, bikeable downtown that has the beauty to it that it's unmatched in the state of Florida.
Councilman Simmons, I'm looking clearly for ways that the voters can differentiate between the 3 candidates. So is there an area where your vision for Bonita differs from the other 2 candidates?
All I can do is give you my vision, Chad, because it's one that probably nobody's going to agree with other than me, right? On the east end of town, I want to preserve the environment. That is zoned currently 1 house for 20 acres. I want to keep it that way. I don't want to overburden the east end of town. As you move towards the highway, we might have a high school there. We'll see. As you come west to 75, we're undertaking the Bonita Beach Road visioning study right now. so that that area right now is a little overused and a little run down. I want to make that area pop. I want people to get off the highway on 75 and say, wow, look at this place, this is wonderful. And as you advance east down Bonita Beach Road, I want to spruce up some of the businesses there, encourage new business, fix up the homes, and as you approach Old 41, we'll see what happens at the dog track, whether expanded gaming is going to come or it's not. We know what's going to happen down on Old 41. We've discussed that, and as you move towards the center of town, we've got to fix that traffic problem at the intersection
Time.
and keep the beaches beautiful, obviously.
Thank you. Mr. Steinmeier.
Okay, let's see here. Bonita Springs is a retirement community. It always has been. My father told me that in 1952 down at the beach. He said, Bonita Springs is a retirement community. People work their whole lives to come down here and retire. And I'm watching these people go up and down the beach picking up shells. And I said, Dad, I can do that now. I was 4 years old. Bonita Springs is a retirement community, period. It's not a college town. It's not a Fort Myers Beach. It's not a Fort Myers City. It's not a Naples. It's a retirement community. 70% of the people, like these two here, live in gated communities. What does the city do for them? Takes their money and spends it. They got $10 million for the band shell park. They bought out the bamboo court. They bought Manor Court. They bought Corky's RV
Time.
park. They got rid of all the local people. Thank you.
We've heard a couple of mentions here tonight about the intersection of Bonita Beach Road and 41. And so my question for the candidates, and we'll start with Peter Simmons, is if an overpass at 41 and Bonita Beach Road is not the answer, what is the answer?
Well, you caught me here. I got something in here. There's been a lot of confusion as to what exactly is going on down there. And I just wanted to clarify a couple of things if we could. The document that I have here, the US 41 interchange and Bonita Beach Road, the project description was the project includes a new 4-lane overpass at the US 41 and Bonita Beach Road intersection. The purpose of this project is to improve the operation and safety of the intersection. Another example that this was designed to be an overpass, a flyover if you will, is a new 4-lane overpass at the US 41 interchange and Bonita Beach Road on another FDOT document. Going back to 2008, there was members of the City Council of Bonita Springs that went to Washington, D.C. to, quote, inform the City Council to go to Washington to meet with Congressman and the Senator to discuss funding for the potential overpass at US 41 and Bonita Beach Road.
Time.
Naples Daily News, an article. I can go on and on. There's several examples that this was on the fast track to be a federal flyover.
Time.
Steve, you want to tackle that one next?
Sure. I was on the MPO. I'm one of the people that read this study and went to the DOT to find out what it really meant. There's a standard boilerplate practice of trying to put things into the hands of people. And I was promised, and I can guarantee you, it could never have been a flyover. It couldn't have passed the impact test. It couldn't have passed the environmental, economic, social impact tests of a flyover. It was a study. It was a study to look at the potential options, the possible options 20 years out to determine how you get traffic through that intersection. And it's really about stopping growth is what the issue was for most of the people on this council. Because there was a comment made, if you build roads, they'll come. Well, they're coming. And if we don't have an infrastructure to support the growth all around us, Estero, North Naples, Fort Myers Beach, then we're not going to be able to survive and have the quality of life we have. We're getting a vision study ready now, and that will include a study of the intersection we just talked about. And the difference is we don't have the $1 million DOT study. You can call it home rule. I call it taxation of the citizens instead of getting it from the government.
Rick, what's your
Well,
opinion?
let's see, that $1 million, where does that come from? China? That comes from the taxpayer. What's the matter if it comes from the Bonita taxpayer or the Honolulu taxpayer? It's still taxpayer money, and you're not going to build an overpass, so why bother to study? And he says in this article, he says some of the members of the council were opinion that study was, they shouldn't study it. Well, 5 out of 7, at 5-2, they voted twice, 5-2, against the study. But that's only a sum of the council. They've done another study. There's some other different ways to knock down the traffic on Old 41 and New 40, Old 41 and the Beach Road. You go down Hawthorne, or not Hawthorne. There's a couple different ways to get around the intersection without going through the intersection. If you live here,
Time.
you know how to get there. Thank you.
And our last round of questions. Chad?
I'm curious about beach parking, gentlemen. Do you think there's a need for more parking at the beach? And if so, what should the city do to help alleviate some of the parking problems, if you see that there's a problem? We'll start with, I believe, Mr. Steinmeier. Take the first step.
Well, I've got a parking spot for you. It's on the west side of Hickory Boulevard. $700,000. And you get a 2-bedroom and a 2-bath apartment to go with it. It's a covered parking lot. You know, hey, come on. Come on, you want it parked down there? Buy down there. They got houses down there for $5.5 million now. You think they want to let their people park in their front yard, walk through their yard? Bonita, we have a good sheriff, and the crime is way down. Before we were a city, we were the murder capital of Lee County. I don't know if anybody, how many people live in Bonita here? Oh, some of you, okay. Sheriff Scott's doing a fabulous job, but Master McIntosh, he voted against the sheriff's budget. He voted against the fire department's budget. What kind of guy is that?
What about beach parking? Councilman
Beach
Simmons.
parking, I told you,
Councilman Simmons.
700,000.
Councilman Simmons, that's
Okay,
for
okay.
you.
All right, I just figured Steve might want to rebut, seeing how that was
We'll
addressed.
get to that
Yeah.
after all the
Okay.
questions.
In terms of beach parking, we need to look at alternatives. There's only a finite amount of land there. I'll put it to you this way. I'll blow the elephant out of the room. If you think I want to develop environmentally sensitive wetlands or cut down mangroves to add parking spaces, absolutely not. I think we need to look at beach shuttles. I think we need to look at rearranging the space that we have, making better use of the space that we have, and probably looking at people parking possibly at the center of town or some other places, and running some beach shuttles down there. But in terms of sacrificing our environment for pavement and asphalt, no thank you.
All right, Councilman McIntosh.
That's exactly what the council's been talking about, is figuring out how to get more people on and off the beach. It's a limited amount of space, obviously, and shuttles are probably the right answer. We don't have space for more parking. We do have public transportation that runs back and forth to the beach. People don't like to use it. You know, we're used to growing up with our own vehicles. I will tell you, in 20 years, we won't have those vehicles. We'll be using bicycles and our walkable, bikeable Bonita Springs, city of Bonita Springs. So public transportation is probably the answer, and that's where we're going to go.
Thank you, guys.
The next question for the candidates, back when Bonita Incorporated, everyone was promised this would be incorporation light. And so my question for the candidates, has the city lived up to that promise of incorporation light? And let's go ahead and start with Rick on this one.
Well, we have all bosses, all chiefs. We hire everything out, which is good because we don't have the people sitting around waiting for their pension. We don't have a pension expense. But the people that we do have are highly paid, a lot more than the normal people. The family income in Bonita is like $46,000. Now that's family income. Okay, so that would be $23,000 an hour, and nobody in Bonita makes $23,000 an hour. The average wage is $9 an hour, which is a lot more than the federal minimum wage. Who works in Bonita? Anybody here have a job? A few. Anybody got a job? 1, 2. Hey, here we go. Yeah. Nigel back there, he works in a bank.
Time.
Peter, incorporation light, has it happened?
Well, since we've became a city 16 years ago, government light has been the motto around City Hall. And, with very few exceptions, we do a phenomenal job. I mean, everybody could, tweak here or do something a little bit different. What I'd like to do, if elected mayor of Bonita Springs, I'd like to start at zero-based budgeting. Let's start the budget at zero and build it up from there. See where we can save, see what we can adjust, see what we can alter, and then we really, truly will have government light.
Steve, what's your?
Yeah, I'm proud of what we do at the city. Balanced budget, no deficit spending. We couldn't do it with the limited number of people. We have 50 people, employees servicing 47,000 people. And we couldn't do it without the partnerships we have with the Lee County Sheriffs for our public safety, Bonita Springs Fire and Rescue. None of these are under our purview to handle our fire and rescue. Bonita Springs Utilities, people just like you who started figuring out how we could keep our water clean and handle our wastewater. We also have 100 volunteers that run everything from our Veterans Administration, Veterans Committee to street license zoning to land planning. Those are the kinds of things that allow us to maintain a budget that has the lowest millage rate of any city of our size in the state of Florida. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm not sure where I didn't vote for the fire department and the police, because those are critical partners for us in this relationship.
I'd like to ask the candidates once again to look into a crystal ball. Looking ahead 4 years, what do you see at the side of the Naples-Fort Myers Greyhound track? And although I know the state legislature will have a lot to say about that, what happens there, what can you do as the mayor to bring about the vision that you would ideally see there? Mr. Simmons, why don't you start with that?
Well, I think if we go back a few years, the current city council, actually, excuse me, with one exception, Martha Simons was on the council then, we voted 7-0 in favor of letting them expand gaming there. It then went to the state in Tallahassee, and that's where it ran into a roadblock. It ran into Mickey Mouse and the Disney lobby. One of the most powerful lobbies, not only in the state, but in the country. They don't want expanding gaming. They want it to stay with the Indian Compact, and they don't want to allow it. Having said that, we need to quit racing the Greyhounds, and we need to see what's going to happen with the Indian Compact. As you see, they are advertising on TV now. They know it's not a done deal. They know they have a battle, so they're lobbying to keep that. I'm in favor, I'm on the record as letting that expand. Some of us have a moral problem with gambling, and I certainly respect that. But gambling is legal, and as long as it's legal, I think we're allowed to expand it in Bonita Springs and have some wonderful Las Vegas-type shows there and wonderful restaurants. And the Haveneck family has been amazing for 50 years.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Steinmeier?
Yeah, well, the Haveneck family, they said to the city, okay, we'll take $100 million and we'll give you 1%. Oh, boy. Well, that's $100 million profit, not handle, because that's the money we pay back. We'll decide how much money we paid back. And we're going to take $100 million out of Bonita Springs and take it over to Miami to the Flagler racetrack, and we're going to give you $1 million. Does that make sense? We take $100 million out of the city of Bonita Springs for $1 million so the government can waste it? Doesn't make sense. Now, if you go on the internet, you can find out who gave what money to who in this campaign. And now, Mr. McIntosh got $1,000 from the Flagler racetrack, and he got $1,000 from the Flagler casino. All have the same address. I wonder what Mr. McIntosh is going to do for the people in Miami. Thank you.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yeah, it's about economic development. The council did vote to assure that we got something coming out of this. But it's not really about the money, it's about jobs. It's 400 jobs if racing and gambling are allowed over at the racetrack. But most importantly, they don't want the racetrack doesn't want to race greyhounds. They lose money every time they put a dog on the track. But by state law, they can't have gambling unless they have dogs. So I'm hoping that the compact that's being the changes in the compact being suggested in Tallahassee include fairness from the West Coast that they have on the East Coast in terms of gambling, and the fact that we can stop racing dogs at that point. This is, morality aside, this is about economic development. This is about taking that corner that has the potential of bringing jobs and more business to this area, and that's what I hope for.
Well, excellent first round. At this point, we're going to shift to questions from the community as well as from our studio audience, beginning with Alan Bartlett.
Here's a question that was emailed into us for the candidates. How do you propose to protect the quality and quantity of our drinking water and mitigate the flooding potential? Let's go ahead and start with Steve McIntosh on this question.
I sat on the Bonita Springs Utilities Board for 6 years. I understand how water moves here. I understand that it is in aquifers. The DRGR is a protected area. The science was mixed, but I can tell you there's no appetite on this council or the next council to build homes out there. We're going to make sure it's a green space protected. But what we know about the water in this area is it comes from the north. The South Water Management, Florida Water Management District has assured us that they will protect it, and the Conservancy is on top of it. But give me the question again, please.
How do you propose to protect the quality and quantity of drinking water and mitigate
Bonita Springs
flooding?
Utilities has taken responsibility for this, and they are assuring us that this drinking water will always be available. As we said, we're protecting the aquifers. We're not going to build out there on the DRGR, and we will have drinking water, and we'll protect our wastewater treatment plant. Can handle 18 million gallons a day with zero environmental footprint. Thank you, Bonita Springs Utilities.
Rick, you want to go ahead and tackle that
Yes,
question?
thank you, Mr. McIntosh. I do agree with the Bonita Springs Utility is the best potable water in the state of Florida. One year, the next year it was second by somebody in Tallahassee came in first. So, but that is one of the best things in Bonita is the water utility company. Now that water that we're drinking comes from the Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia. We're not going to run out of water. The groundwater density reduction, groundwater resource, which is a DRGR, they figured that because like 3% of that water makes it down into the aquifer. Not that much. Now that land was zoned 1 house to 1 acre. Then it was 1 house to 5 acres. Then Lee County said, oh, it's 1 house to 10 acres. Well, the people own the land say, hey, you're taking my property. So we haven't taken all of it, so we're not going to pay you for any of it. That's not right at all.
Time.
Peter, you want to wrap up? How do you propose to protect the quality and quantity of our drinking water and mitigate flooding potential?
Well, if elected mayor, I have a consistent voting record of voting against development in the DRGR. I certainly recognize, as most of you do, a quick geography lesson here. The water that flows down from just south of Orlando and goes to Lake Okeechobee, we need to let that water go further south. It doesn't need to keep coming west and going east. We need to let more of it flow south so that Florida Bay can get the water that they need. We need to realize that Mother Nature is in charge here. We can't sacrifice that land for development at the risk of our own environment. I agree Bonita Springs Utilities does a wonderful job. They know a lot more about this than I do, but in terms of what will I do, I will vote consistently to avoid big development on the east end of town, to sacrifice our environment and overburden our environment. We need to let that area do what it was designed to do, accept water and let it recharge.
We have several good questions from our audience submitted this evening. I'll start with one to all 3 candidates. What single initiative have you successfully contributed to Bonita Springs that was not attached to your role on council or a political agenda? Mr. McIntosh, why don't you start with that?
I will. I think the thing is becoming most clear is the Wonder Gardens. There was a point where the Piper family had intended to sell that to a developer and build condominiums on the Imperial River. There is a public-private partnership combined with the foundation that's made up of citizens here in town who have taken leadership roles. It's going to save the Wonder Gardens. It will be a green space for our grandchildren's grandchildren. It sits on the Imperial River, the same body of water where the Florida Gulf Coast University Marine Science Center sits. So we'll be able to have testing of the water all through that area. It will be a botanical garden as well as a green space for our children. And you know what's going to happen downtown is that you're going to see a piece of history maintained. And I'm proud to tell you that my wife Connie and I sponsored a fundraiser for the Wonder Gardens a week ago. We hope to raise $10,000, and the generosity of the people At that fundraiser and around city, we raised $85,000 to protect and save the Wonder Gardens.
Mr. Simmons?
You know, my wife and I certainly enjoy volunteering at our children's school. We go in there, we speak to classes, we help out with whatever assignments they may need, or our son's football games. We volunteer there and are happy to do that, whether it's serving fish at the Historical Society or selling raffle tickets or bingo tickets or whatever the case may be. We love this community. We're actively involved with this community, and we hope to continue our service to this community.
Mr. Steinmeier?
For the last 36 years, I've taken care of Hickory Boulevard. Anybody go down Hickory Boulevard? We got palm trees on the right hand, on the east side of Hickory Boulevard. That bike path was bought by Bonita Beach Improvement Association, which is the people that live on Little Hickory Island. I'm the oldest member. I've only been there 36 years, but the organization's 60 years old. I pick up after those palm trees. I pick up after the cigarette butts. I pick up the beer cans. I pick up the broken glass. I take care of that 2 miles of Hickory Boulevard every week, 2, 3, 4 days a week, depending on how the weather is. I was there this morning at 5:30 in the morning because we had a storm last night and I had palm fronds to pick up so they could get it taken away with the horticultural pickup on Wednesday. I see stuff in the road. You know, I take care of Hickory Boulevard. Everybody comes down Hickory Boulevard. I don't go to the beach. All I do is work down there. I work every day. Ran for the mayor's survey 5 times as a fundraiser for the Historical Society.
Chad, over to you.
This question is about the economy and how to boost business. The person who wrote this question wants to know specifically, how can we lure businesses to Bonita that create jobs? Can you specifically say what you would do? Councilman McIntosh, take a first stab at this.
I certainly will. We're making moves on City Council right now to assure that we have incentives in place to bring private investment downtown. That's what we have to have. We've created underground utilities, brought all the utilities underground, all the stormwater underground, created parking, and that's what we're using the loan we took. So we have private investment coming downtown. I think what you're going to see is, and what we've been most proud of, is we have an accelerated permitting process in Bonita, where the fire, downtown, the permitting, all the pieces that go together to get a permit created for developers moves quickly. And you can ask any of the construction folks in the room tonight or on the street. If they go to Bonita, you'll get your permit in 3 to 5 days. If you go to other areas around here in the counties, it's 3 weeks to 5 weeks. So we're creating incentives, we're creating opportunities for private investment.
Right now, I mean, Steve's touched on a lot of the things. You know, we've given the incentives to encourage business to come to town. I think we can even do a better, our permitting department does a very good job. I think we can continue to make it more attractive to do business in Bonita Springs. The government-light approach, keep taxes low, keep spending low so that it doesn't overburden our taxpayers or overburden the people that want to move into the community or want to work at the new businesses we're bringing to town. So low taxes, government-light, give incentives to allure businesses and continue to do what we've done, and that's be business-friendly in Bonita Springs.
Mr. Steinmeier, last take on this. Specifically, what would you do to create jobs in Bonita?
I don't think we need any more jobs. We don't need any more people in Bonita. I'd raise the impact fees as high as I could get away with so that people can pay the taxes before they move here. If you want to live in Bonita, you're going to have to pay. You go, if you can't pay to live in Bonita, go to Estero, go to Naples, go anywhere you want to go. There's millions and millions of people. We don't need any more people. If you want somebody to cut your grass, you might have to pay them more. They might have to live in Estero or Lehigh because they can't afford to live in Bonita. Well, you'll have to pay them more. That's it. They'll be here. They'll be here. You'll get people. You'll be able to hire people. But you're just going to have to pay them more. More people, more problems, more pollution, more politicians. Thank you.
Need to take another one.
And we have another round from the community. I'm going to start with Alan.
There's another question that was emailed into us from one of your constituents. And I guess there's a premise to this question that things are not all well, but what will you do as mayor to make communications better between the city and its residents? Rick, why don't you tackle that first?
Give him a kick in the butt. 949-6262. That's the phone number. You can get all the information you want. You can go online, get BonitaSprings.com. You people have got to do the communications. We're here to, in fact, if I want to represent you, which I do, you're going to have to let me know what you need. I'm not going to sit up here and decide you need this, you need that. That's not my job. I work for you. You tell me what you need, not what you want necessarily, what you need. I can't do the fire department. I can't do the water company because they're different and separate. The garbage company's out of Lee County. There are a few things. The parks, city's big on parks. We're spending $120,000 for Celebrate Bonita. One day in the park of Bonita, $120,000. That's good taxpayer money.
Peter, you want to tackle that question next? What will you
sure.
do?
I mean, I would start with the premise that communication is always a two-way street, as we all know. But having said that, there are areas that we can do better. Example from our children's school, and nobody likes those robocalls, but quite frankly, with those public service announcements, we could do those. I mean, in this age of technology, I don't know if we want to text people. I don't know if we want to run tickers on the bottom of Bonita Springs TV 98. Do we want to get an email list going? Do we want to get a phone list going? Do we want to have notices that go out, electronic notices? The city has already started with quite an email distribution list that we have. But in this age of technology, to not overburden people, but to also be responsive to their needs, I think there's a lot of different areas that we could look into. And certainly when there's a big issue coming up in a neighborhood, I think we need to blanket the neighborhood to let them know.
Yeah, I think I've tried to pride myself in being open and transparent, but I also chair the Technical Advisory Board for the city, and over the last 4 years, we have created social media options for all of our citizens to be able to make contact with us and to make sure that we understand what the issues are. I don't think there are many people hesitant in this city to come and make their issues known at City Council. We have a full house typically, and that's good. We've never told people don't come. We ask them to come. And I will tell you that I think our staff is very open to communications. I don't think there's a time where a call's been made and people haven't responded within the 24-hour period that they're expected to respond. I know that I do the same thing. I give people a time that I'm going to respond, and I do. So I'm not sure what the issue was that raised that question, but I will tell you that I think the city does a good job of communicating with the citizens.
Gentlemen, a couple of our audience members have raised the issue of the property of the former public golf course off of Maddox Street. Said it's been unused and vacant for several years. What would you like to see done with that property? Mr. Simmons, would you go first, please?
Sure, and that's an area that I was elected to 4 years ago, and am very well aware of that issue. It's an issue where I think you need to ask yourself, do you want it to be a private golf course, or do you want it to be a public golf course, or do you want to kind of see it a mixed use? I can tell you this after several discussions. I don't think it's economically feasible for the city of Bonita Springs to run that. I could be wrong, and if I stand corrected on that issue, I'm open to looking into that. We need private industry, we need private enterprise to come in there and open up that golf course. I've also heard talk of keeping 9 of the holes open and building some homes on the other 9 homes, or some mixed use thereof. So I do believe that private enterprise, look, this is a wonderful economy, it's a robust economy. I think it's only a matter of time. But to burden the taxpayers with a public golf course, I don't see the benefits to that. But please, if I'm wrong about that, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, very good. Mr. Steinmeier, the golf course?
The people who live around there, it happened that Mom and Dad bought a lot around there maybe 30 years ago. And they sold it, made a little profit. But they're glad they sold it before it found out that, well, if you read your deed, those people who live around it, they don't own that golf course. They never did. They just have a beautiful backyard where somebody else cuts the grass. Well, the guy went bankrupt. It's private, it's owned by a private person. If you want it, go buy it. I'm sure you get a good price on it. Free enterprise, free market, private property. We hear a lot of private partnership, private-public partnership. Well, as to quote Reagan, I'm from the government. I want to be your partner. I'm already your partner. I'm taking your taxes, whether you want to or not. And if you don't pay me, I'll throw you out of your house. I'm a good partner. Thank you.
Mr. McIntosh?
We have taken a look at that, and there are a number of citizens came forward a couple years ago and proposed it. And there are municipal golf courses that can stand alone, but we haven't been able to find a business model that matches that, primarily because the cost of land is too high. And there are people in the audience tonight who responsibly asked that question because we need to keep it in front of us. There are a lot of private golf courses here, but there are a lot more golfers who would love to have a public golf course. It's not economically feasible for us right now as a municipality to run a golf course, but we're still looking at the business models that might make it feasible.
Okay, and Chad, over to you.
This one is a topic you guys have already touched on briefly tonight, but I'll give you an opportunity to expound on it. It's about affordable housing. The person asking the question wants to know, what is your position on affordable housing and the lack of it? Start with Councilman Simmons.
Well, we've put some affordable housing. We just recently voted on it. Number of units in downtown to help, as I said, with that density to draw some people to our downtown, some young professional housing where people can live, some young nurses or some young medical assistants or firemen or policemen or women, what have you. We're addressing the issue, and we've just recently approved some. Now, does that answer the whole problem? No, but we're on our way. We've started.
Rick, you want to take this?
Habitat for Humanity has built some houses in the Rosemary Park area. We got to keep the poor people in one area. You know, we got to build affordable housing where the affordable people are. We just want affordable housing so we don't have to pay these people. That's my opinion. It's not my business as a government to build houses for people. It's private enterprise. Did somebody build your house, pay to build your house? You know, it's free enterprise. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, there's a big difference between affordable housing and low-income housing. And Habitat is a private organization, it is not a governmental organization. And they've done a good job of finding homes for people that are working-class people that need homes. When we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about affordable housing for young professionals typically. And it's ones where people come out of the university or come down here to find a job, much like the people behind the scenes here today, are trying to find a place to live where they work. And rather than travel 40 miles to get there, and that's our responsibility. It is a government responsibility not to own the properties, not to build the properties, but to find private investors and a way to generate incentives so that we can have affordable housing. And there's a distinct difference, I'm going to say it once again, between affordable housing and low-income housing.
So we have one about something that I'm sure every driver's noticed in some city or county at one point. If the Bonita Springs Council wants to promote business downtown, why are signs and sign waivers not permitted? Steve, you want to take first stab at that?
I'm not even sure what the question is.
I believe they're referring to people that will hold signs for various businesses.
Well, we have those. I mean, we have people doing that downtown now.
And that's currently not, it's permitted, you're allowed to do that?
We don't have permitting process to my knowledge,
Yeah.
but I'm not,
Code enforcement's not going to stop them.
I've never seen them stop them yet.
Law against it.
Yeah. Do you guys want to weigh in on that topic of the person is asking about signs and sign waivers?
Well, that issue's come up a few times, and I think part of when you look at what we're visioning, the Bonita Beach Road Visioning Study, downtown Old 41, the quality of life, keeping our quality of life, improving our quality of life, do we want this to be a downtown Orlando where people are spinning pizza circles and, that's not what we're looking for. I think we're looking for a little higher quality. I think we're looking for something where we've all heard the expression, you can say more by doing less. So if they're looking for blinking neon signs and people waving box tops, no, I would not be in favor of that.
Yeah, well, the people with the signs saying Eat at Joe's or whatever, that's against the ordinance. We have an ordinance against that. A lot of the ordinances that they write don't get enforced. One I have a big problem with right now is the sign ordinance. A couple months ago, they wrote a sign ordinance. You're not allowed to put signs on road right-of-way. Now, everyone, I say 99% of these guys' signs are on road right-of-way. I call code enforcement. Well, if we enforce that, we'd have to enforce all the laws. Huh? You won't find any of my signs illegally placed in Bonita Springs. McIntosh has signs in Collier County on road right-of-way. I don't have $60,000 to spend on this campaign. I'm spending $1,100 of my money out of my pocket because I don't want to owe anybody anything.
Would you gentlemen like to rebut that?
I don't know how to rebut that. Apparently, I'm the horned devil tonight, but I will tell you that I've been very careful about spending my constituents and donators' money. And if you have to have signs, but I don't have any signs of right-of-ways. And I made the effort, our entire committee made the effort when we started signage work on this campaign. We went to every person whose property we're going to ask to use. We got signed authorization to do it. We had their approval, and we've been very careful about what we've done.
Mr.
Right,
Simmons?
and I would say likewise, absolutely. And people that have put up signs or know the process, there is a sign form that you need to have for the larger signs in the city of Bonita Springs. And that's not as always easy as you might think, chasing down the property owner, but none of us have put up a sign in violation of this. We've always tracked down the forms, and then you need to be behind the telephone wires. And I think I know exactly what Rick's talking about. If you know where Vanderbilt Road is, and you come up to Vanderbilt Road and to Bonita Beach Road and take a left or head west towards Doc's Beach House, a lot of people don't know that that left-hand side of the road is Collier County. I mean, probably a lot of you do, but some of you may not. So I'm in violation. I do down there at the kayak place. Those folks are supporters, and I do have a sign up there, and that is technically Collier County, but a lot of Bonita people see it. So, Rick, you can remove it if it's bothering you.
Well, thank you. Great questions from our viewers at home and our audience here. I think we have time for one last round from our panelists, and we'll begin with Alan.
I want to get down to what the difference is going to be depending on which of you gentlemen is chosen. And so for my last question here, I want to ask, if you're the one elected, what will you be able to point to and say, I made a difference as the mayor of Bonita Springs? Peter, you want to go ahead and tackle that one first?
Sure, absolutely. We're going to protect the environment. We're going to improve the beaches. We're going to improve our quality of life. We're going to be business friendly. We're going to improve traffic, and we're going to be walkable and bikeable, pedestrian friendly. I can't tell you the number of bikes that I see that literally they don't have room to ride. You see the traffic backups. You see the medians that need to be replaced or fixed, be wider median or less median, or when you look at Bonita Beach Road and 41, we need some access roads. We need some artillery roads. We need alternatives, and we need clean water. And I'm going to work with the mayors of this area to continue to fight for the clean water and the Lake Okeechobee water releases. Our beaches are everything down here. They're our economy. They're our backbone. And if we have this water continue to come, we know what it's doing to real estate rates. We know what it's doing to businesses. And we have to stop that. And a legacy is a fiscal conservative and environmentally conscious mayor. Thank you.
Steve McIntosh, how would the city of Bonita Springs be different if you're the one elected?
Well, I think history will show the differences, and the difference is going to be this. Bonita Springs is going to have its own identity. It's going to have its own face. It'll be a place where people say, I love to go there because I can walk, I can bike, I can go to the beach, I'm safe, and they have a city government that's small enough that it takes care of itself without a tax burden on the people that live there. We're going to have a place that your grandkids can live, prosper, run a business, and be happy. We'll have a brand new high school. We'll have a new library. We'll have a downtown that fits what we need it to be, and it's an old Florida style. So I said earlier, every decision I make is based first on what happens to the environment. That's the key to our growth. That's the key to our success. That's the key to our being a place in history.
Growth and the environment don't go hand in hand. I'm sorry. More people, more problems, more pollution. if I get elected mayor, I'm getting a haircut. That's going to make an improvement. That's a promise. That's my first political promise. A lot of people say, oh, get a haircut. I said, well, and then I wouldn't be Rick, now would I?
Peter,
I got beautiful blonde hair.
Peter, Steve, do you want to rebut that he needs a haircut? Or?
That's the first thing I agreed with him tonight. So.
I'm about due for another one. I'm getting a little long.
Well, I'm so frugal, I cut my own hair, all right? I'm a frugal, I don't know, they call conservative. The mayor, the current mayor, he's an admitted liberal. Now, Mr. McIntosh, I hate to pick on him, but I'm into it now, so a big spender. We can spend our way into prosperity.
Time.
Please.
For my final question, I'll avail ourselves of our live chat and a question that someone's watching on the internet has sent in. They say it's become common to hear candidates say they won't raise taxes. How can voters hold you to the pledge that you won't raise taxes, if you would care to make it? And how can we be sure you won't end up running around the promise by going into debt through bonds, perhaps? Steve, you
Sure,
want to go
I'll
first?
take it. I think we can stand on our history in Bonita Springs. During some of the worst municipal times in history over the last few years, we never even considered a millage tax increase. We didn't talk about it. We never even thought it would be important because we tightened our belts. We made sure we had the right services we paid for. We started with zero-based budgeting and made everybody justify what they did and what they asked for. What I can tell you is that this city will run, it may have debt, but it will never have deficit spending. That's not the way we operate. We've never operated that way. We have great reserves, and we'll continue with a balanced budget.
Mr. Simmons?
I just think when you look at the voting record, we actually have cut the mill rate here. We've done more with less, and we will continue to do that. And when you look at the price of doing business in Bonita Springs, we can't drive that out of whack. We need to hold the line and realize that government is not the answer. For most of us, we know government's the problem for the most part, right? Look what's going on in Washington, D.C. Look at the gridlock. Government is not the answer. People are the answer. Private industry is the answer. And that will give you an idea of where I'm coming from and how I'll serve as mayor if elected to Bonita Springs mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Steinmeier?
70% of the people in Bonita live in gated communities. I have yet to find out what the city does for the people that live in the gated communities. Now, they have $1 million houses and they pay lots of taxes, mostly to the county and the school district and everybody else. The city gets about 5% of the tax. But what does the city do for the people in gated communities? These guys live in gated communities. They come out, tell us what to do, and they go back into their gated community. I can't come visit them without begging. Now, I'm conservative, okay? We started out, we borrowed $13 or $14 million last year. We started spending it this year. So we got $28 million in debt. We're paying $3.6 million a year in debt service. To pay back that $28 million is going to cost us $33 million. That's $5 million worth of interest. Now that's wasting money. We didn't need to spend $20 million on Old 41 to flog a dead horse. We removed the impact fees.
I'm sorry, that's time, sir. And our last question tonight will go to Chad.
Well, we've talked about a lot of important issues tonight, but I'm curious to hear from the candidates. If elected as the next mayor of Bonita Springs, what's one issue, one priority that you would like to see accomplished in year one? We'll start with Councilman Simmons.
Well, I think I'd like you to get off exit 75 and realize you're in Bonita Springs and you're somewhere special. That area right there is blighted. That area is overused. That area can come a million miles quickly. We've looked at beautification of Bonita Springs. We need to address the traffic issue, which we will address. We're laser focused on it. We've heard, we know, we wait in that traffic. We know all about it. But we're going to make this place that the traffic's going to move better. The trees are going to look better. We've already started. We're going to have a downtown Old 41 that you can be proud of. We're going to stop those dirty water releases from Lake Okeechobee or die trying, quite frankly, because that is our identity as our beaches. You see the fish that are dying, and we'll stop at nothing to make that happen. continue to be business friendly, continue to be business light, and make this a place that'll really pop off the map, and make it our own identity in the old Florida style, and make it something that we'll be really proud of.
Thank you. Priority in year one.
Break even with the people in the DRGR area that own the property. Buy that property. You want to protect the property, don't just keep taking their rights away from them. Buy it. Buy that property. And then you can say, okay, we're going to preserve it. But if you don't buy it, somebody's going to sell it. You've already taken away all their value, and somebody's going to buy it cheap. And maybe not this council, but we're going to have 5 different people up on that diocese come April Fool's Day. So we got to buy that. Got to buy that DRGR if you want. And why are we giving away impact fees for Old 41? What makes Old 41 so special? Why would a business want to open up on Old 41 when we close it every time we have a party in the Bandshell Park? These businesses aren't going to be there when they got 12 days of the year. They're closing it on the weekends during season.
Time.
Mr. McIntosh.
Yeah, there are a number of things that it's not one thing I think you'll see in the first year of my mayoral position. You're going to see the completion of Old 41 and the downtown revitalization. You're going to see a new high school, a new library. So what we're going to find is a city that people say, wow, that's something really I didn't expect to see when I drove through Bonita Springs. This is a city that's ready to go. This is a city that's on the edge of being really special, and that's what will happen my first year.
Thank you all.
And that wraps up our questioning. I think some of you felt like you had some things left to say, and you'll have 2 minutes each to wrap that up in your closing statements. And we're going to start in reverse order with Mr. Steinmeier.
Okay. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Rick Steinmeier. I was baptized in the Gulf of Mexico in September 20th. I was raised Lutheran, but I never learned the Bible. I found out, I asked the pastor, I said, what's an evangelical? Because they were talking about South Carolina, and the evangelicals were voting for whoever they were voting for. And I said, what's an evangelical? You know, because the Lutheran church I belonged to was ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. But Pastor Bradley says, no, they're not a Bible teaching, Bible believing church. I'm a Baptist now because I'm learning the Bible for the last 2.5 years at the New Life Church down here. We changed the name from the First Baptist of Bonita Springs, so maybe we can get some of these Yanks come in that are filled with all their sin, and once they start hearing what's going on, maybe they won't be afraid of the Baptists. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Simmons.
Right, now, earlier I didn't introduce my family. My wife Suzanne is here, along with our 2 children, Elizabeth and Petey, and my mother Mary Ann is here with her husband Rusty. So I'd like to thank them for joining us this evening. I'd like to thank you for being here, and I'd like to thank the folks at home for listening in here. We have a very important decision ahead of us. You have 3 great candidates up here. You have a lot of new candidates running for city council. And as we've all sensed, there's a lot going on here in Bonita Springs. Every day, my wife and I reflect just how wonderful a city Bonita Springs is to live, to work, to worship, and a community that we can be proud of. We're on the edge of a lot of different things, and I think what we all know here is this is a place that's very unique and very special. It's an area of the country that so many more people want to be here and are here already. It's an area that we can't take for granted. It's an area that we need to be environmentally sensitive and economically, fiscally conservative. So I'm working very hard at this. We've all worked very hard at this. I stand on my record of the past 4 years of fiscal conservatism and pro-environment and doing what's best for the people of Bonita Springs and listening to the people of Bonita Springs. There's some people that take the attitude, and I'm not really sure why, it's their way or the highway. You'll never get that with me. I'm very accessible. I walk our neighborhoods. I joked, as I said 4 years ago when I won a 4-way race for the city council, other than the 4,000 doors that I knocked on, other than the 10,000 robocalls from Sheriff Mike Scott and Councilman John Joyce, or the 30,000 pieces of literature that I sent out, my election was pure luck. But we're running the same type of campaign. We've seen you, we've spoken with you, and we want to continue working with you, and I would really appreciate your consideration on March 15th. Thank you very much.
And Mr. McIntosh, you have the
Thank
last say in 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. I have 2 loving kids. I'm a lucky man. I don't wear my Christianity on my sleeve, but I can tell you the quote that gets me through most of this campaign is, I have a plan I know for you. So whatever happens to this campaign is right for me and it's right for this city. But I bring 3 things to this city as a mayoral candidate that I think distinguish me. My experience, both as a city councilman and deputy mayor, helping run the city. My experience in corporate life and my own personal business, where I focus on strategic planning, assessment of people, and team building. I think those are key skills for a mayor. I am 20 years of community service, and I've said it before. That's the way I am. This community, I love this community, and there are a lot of things that need to be done, and we need the volunteers to do it. I've made my mark and put the effort into making the city what it is well before it was incorporated and I took this position on council. And finally, I'm committed. I'm committed to the city. I'm committed to our charter. I'm committed to making sure that we stay nonpartisan, that we continue with campaign spending caps, and that we have term limits that make sense for everybody in this community. But I'm committed to the city. This is my home. This is where I'll be. And I'll tell you, once I'm your mayor, I'll still be your neighbor. Thank you for listening to me this evening.
And we thank you to all our candidates, and thank you for our audience for coming. And now you can pause.
One more down, buddy.
On behalf of NBC2 and Naples Daily News,